Next, we have Jerry Muehlberger and Larry Reeh. You guys that are in coordinator positions know all these guys. Jerry is, of course, a parishioner here at St. Peter the Apostle Parish. He's been working in jail and prison ministry for the past 9 years, and he serves as co-leader of his parish jail ministry, the treasurer for Kobe Prison Ministries, San Antonio, and as the secretary for the Kobe Board of Directors. Jerry's going to discuss an RCIA program developed with the inmates from the McConnell unit in Beeville. Larry is a parishioner at St. Mary's Catholic Church in Fredericksburg, and he's been working with prison ministries since 2005 and is the founder of Prison Acts, now known as Kobe Prison Ministries. He was the director of the first retreat at Connolly in August of 2009, and he's a board member of Kobe Prison Ministries and past vice president of the board. Larry's going to discuss using the RCIA program just described by Jerry as a correspondence course for inmates isolated in administrative segregation and one-on-one with inmates at the other TDCJ units. Jerry will speak to us also about the Right of Christianization for Adults programs that are being used in the TDCJ units. Larry will then discuss using that RCIA program as an in-house correspondence course for inmates isolated in administrative segregation and as a male correspondence course with inmates at other TDCJ units. Of course, there's going to be a Q&A session afterwards, but in this, right after those two speak, I'm going to introduce Clair McCormick as well. So Larry, Jerry, come on up, please. Big round of applause for these guys. They rock.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so myself and Larry and Claire are going to talk about a couple of programs that we found useful in our ministries in the prisons that we minister to here in the Archdiocese of San Antonio. These are courses that are long, and we've got about 30 minutes to get through them. So you're going to have to buckle your seatbelts because we're going to be zipping through these, and we got lunch waiting. So we know we're not going to have any extra time here for questions and answers. So we're going to try to get through this as quick as we can. The good news is in your goodie bags, you should have a handout. It's got these two elderly looking guys on it that are trying to smile. If you pull that out, it's going to have in it everything that I'm going to talk about here in the next few minutes. I'm going to focus on the RCIA program, and then as Richard said, Larry will talk a little bit about how we take that RCIA program and use it as a correspondence course. Probably the most important page that you have is the one right after the two old guys, and that is this one, because it tells you where you can download this entire program for free off of our internet site. So you can download it and go through it leisurely, at your leisure. And I want to tell you a little bit about the background on it. It's developed at the McConnell unit in Beeville, Texas. At that time, they had a Catholic chaplain, a Catholic priest actually, was chaplain down there. He was at McConnell, or at Connolly rather, and moved to McConnell. And he wanted us to develop an RCI program that was kind of focused on the inmate population. So Father Joseph Achiel kind of directed us. We had a lot of input by the inmates. This program has been reviewed and renewed and rewritten about 5 or 6 times now. It includes both student and lesson and leader lesson plans. They're the same except that the leader lesson plans have suggested answers to the questions, and I'll get to that in a little bit. The course that you download, if you download it from the website, actually is 2 courses, and each of them is 28 lessons. The one I'm going to talk about today is the first part is the RCIA, what we refer to as the RCIA program. The second 28 lessons is the Our Father's Plan by Jeff Cavins and Scott Hahn. It's been reviewed and approved by TDCJ, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. It's been endorsed by the Archdiocese of San Antonio. The purpose is a little bit more expanded than the typical, what we refer to as RCIA. Yes, it is sacraments prep. That's certainly the focus of it, and walking with a more intimate connection with Christ. But we noticed after the Kobe retreats that we get people fired up and we needed something to keep the embers burning, if you will. So that was a piece of this course also. And another aspect of it is both on our retreats and in the RCA, what we call the RCA program, we most of the time have at least 50% who are non-Catholic, and a lot of them are not interested in becoming Catholics necessarily, but they're interested in the weird things we Catholics do and asking questions about them. So they're there to challenge us, which actually has turned out to be a really good thing. It really has given us the opportunity to dissipate a lot of the unfortunate misconceptions that our non-Catholic brothers have. So that's been a blessing that's come from the course too. The second part, as I said, is our Father's Plan, which is a review of salvation history, but I'm going to focus on the first part, the first 28 lessons. So it's organized in the same way the Catechism of the Catholic Church is organized. Profession of Faith, which is basically salvation history and the Creed. Celebration of the Christian mystery, Mass and the sacraments. Life in Christ, the Beatitudes and the Commandments. And then the last part of the Catechism is focused on Christian prayer, and we kind of integrate that into the first three segments in this course. So in the course, we give 3 books to each student and each facilitator. Outlines one copy that outlines the Catholic faith. We give them the Catechism of the Catholic Church, but we also offer them the UCAT, if you're familiar with that, Youth Catechism of the Catholic Church. It contains the same elements, the same divisions as the Catechism does, but it's in a format that's focused a little bit more toward high school students, and it's in a question and answer format. A lot of the guys find that a lot easier to follow than the Catechism, which, as you know, can get a little deep now and then, but a lot of them want the Catechism, want to dig in a little deeper, so we have that available to them too. There are related videos with each of the lessons. What we've done is we've taken segments from various places that deal with the topic for that lesson. We've taken it from YouTube. We've taken it from various Catholic video series, such as Catholicism series, the Symbolon series, the Bible and the Sacraments. That's the one with Scott Hahn. Ones I'm sure many of you are familiar with. We've taken segments that are pertinent to that particular lesson. We put them together on a single video, usually 20 to 30 minutes, that are pertinent to that lesson. We've got copyright permission for each of those. But if you want to use them, we've told the people who own the copyright that we would buy 1 copy of each of these series, and that would suffice for all the prisons in our particular diocese. The costs then, free to download, so that part is free. You can get the books, various sources. We get them for about 10 to 15 bucks per person, per student, and per facilitator. The videos, if you had to buy them all from scratch, it'd be about 500 bucks. So it's an investment, but it's a one-time investment. And I think you'll find most of your dioceses will have a lot of these already there. I mean, the Catholicism series is everywhere. And so you probably won't have to buy these a lot of times. They'll already be there. And you can use them again for courses in themselves. So you get a twofers for that purchase. And then the copies of the lesson plans for each of the individual lessons that we run off for each of the participants. Usually the prisons will provide that copy opportunity for you. Here's a typical class. Runs about 60 to 90 minutes. We start off with a prayer, have a short overview of what we've talked about in the past and how it led into what we're talking about today. We have our topic video, which again is about 20 to 30 minutes. Then we break into small groups, usually 5 to 7 at a table with a facilitator at each table. And we talk about the lesson of the day, the questions. They're expected to do homework, readings, I'll get to that in a minute, readings and Q&A. And so we just have a discussion about that homework. We check their homework. We let them know in the beginning of the course. If they come in without homework, that counts as a non-participant for that day. And they only get a couple of those non-participations before they are not eligible for a graduation certificate. So we really want to, again, the idea is they got some time on their hands, right? So we want to keep them busy during that time between the different classes. So we give them a good amount of readings and ask them to actually have the answers to the questions written down when they come in. Then we have a small group feedback from each of the small groups, and we give them the handouts for the following week, end with a prayer. We do have a separate table for those who are in sacraments prep, and that gives an opportunity for them to have a special facilitator assigned to them, to go a little deeper into the topics, to work on their walk with Christ, and to participate in the liturgical aspects of typical RCIA. Here's an example of a typical lesson. This particular lesson has two parts to it. The first one's on sin. The second part is on the Beatitudes. This is the student guide, but again, we have also a leader guide, and the leader guide will have suggested answers. It'll be exactly the same, but it'll have suggested answers. The DVD for this particular part on sin is the 7 Deadly Sins, 7 Lively Virtues. Many of you are familiar with that one by now Bishop Robert Barron. These are the readings. Notice they're readings from the outlines of the Catholic Church. We have readings from the Catechism or the UCAT, and we have readings from Scripture, and we expect them to dig into all of these. Here's some examples of the questions that are part of each lesson. We have lesson questions from the outlines of the Catholic faith. We have two sections for questions. First part is outlines of the Catholic faith. And notice we give them a reference for where to look for the answers. We try to make it as easy as we can for them, but we want them to look for the answers and we want them to write them down. This next slide shows an example of questions from the Catechism of the Catholic Church and the UCAT. And notice once again, we give them the reference both from the Catechism and from the UCAT. And that second question is one that says individual answers. We have a lot of these where they're basically discussion questions, where there's no rote answer somewhere in what they've read, but we want them to kind of think for themselves, like this one, what's meant by Romans 5:20, where it says, where sin increased, God's grace increased much more. We want them to kind of think that through and tell us what they thought about that. And we don't hammer them. If they give it a shot, that's good enough for us because it gets them thinking, it starts the discussion. And we end each lesson, as I said, 28 lessons. So we end and it takes us about a year in the prison system to get through it, truthfully, because with all the lockdowns and other seasons that occur that cause us to lose some time, it takes us about a year. And we try to time it ideally for whenever the bishop is able to come in to perform the sacraments with us. We end each lesson by holding them accountable and trying to get them to see that we're going through these lessons not just as time out of your cell. That's nice too, but we want it to mean something to you in your life. So we try to make the lessons pertinent to them in their day-to-day life in the prison. The first question is the so what question. So what? We've just spent an hour and a half chit-chatting with one another. So what? What is what we talked about today mean to you in terms of your beliefs, your attitudes, or what you're going to do in the plan for your life? So we try to make it pertinent to them. The second one is what we call pumping spiritual iron. They kind of like that title. And the idea is you got to put it into practice. Whatever we learn today in any of these courses, you got to put it into practice. And so we focus them on the two great commandments. What did you do today? Look for an opportunity today to honor God or to love somebody around you. So again, we try to focus them on holding them accountable because they hold one another accountable a lot of times. And they like that idea of being held accountable, actually. All of us need that now and then too, I guess. Finally, how am I doing? So at the end of the day, we say, look, your day's over. Before you go to sleep, ask yourself that question. How'd you do in terms of fulfilling the two great commandments? What did you do today to honor God? Or what opportunity did you miss to honor God today? Or to help a buddy that may have been in need? So that's a whirlwind tour through the 28 lessons of our RCIA course. Next, Larry is going to talk about how there are certain groups of people who are not able to participate, right? Guys in SEG, guys in certain levels of security. And then there might be people at certain units that don't have access to Catholic courses at all. And you might be writing them, communicating with them by letter writing. And so Larry's going to talk to us about how we might use this course as a correspondence course for those who can't make it to our classes, or who you're communicating with by letter writing.
One of the things I love about this program is that you have what's called a student guide and a leader's guide. So the student guide's got the questions for the student to answer, and of course, the leader's guide has all the answers to the questions. So there is prison ministry and there is ADSEG prison ministry. For those of you that don't know anything about administrative segregation, this is just a fancy term for those that are incarcerated in a cell 23 hours a day. And they're in there for different reasons. Gabe kind of talked a little bit about that. At the website, you'll find the complete instruction under the ADSEG RCA, which includes a letter to the chaplain requesting permission to bring the course to ADSEG. We need to get permission first before we bring it back to ADSEG, and so you'll find everything on the website. I think there's a letter with 6 attachments. After we receive an okay from the chaplain to bring the course into ADSEG, we send the inmate an invitation to join. The inmate sign up. This is where the inmate will fill out enrollment application. We send them an introductory letter introducing the program to them. It spells out the RCA program. After that, we deliver the books that Dr. Jerry was talking about, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, a Catholic Bible, and the outline of the Catholic faith, which is a small book that they also get. Weekly visits. This is where we make personal contacts with the inmates that are part of this program. Excuse me. They do the lessons, and we would go back to that segregation and talk to these guys one-on-one and pick up the lesson. The lesson is brought back. It's either brought back to the chaplain for grading, or we take them home as a volunteer to grade them. And the following week, the inmate will get another lesson to do. The beauty about this program, for you guys that are familiar with the how things are run at the unit, they have what's called field ministers that we rely on to go back to segregation when we're not allowed to go back there for whatever reason. Like right now during a lockdown, we're not allowed to, I don't think anybody's going to segregation. There may be some units that do go back there. One of the things we do not use in the prison is the mail system, because things tend to get lost in the mail and they never get back to the chapel. One of the big things after completion of the course by the inmates is the certificate that they get. And this certificate is very important to them, because they'll use this for their parole package when they are up for parole. Now there are some other available correspondence courses that are on the website that you can also use that you might want to look into. So it kind of spells out what we do as a personal contact going into ADSEG. Item 2, further use of this course as a mail correspondence. When I was at Connolly going to see these guys on a weekly basis back in early 2019, all the guys I was ministering to they all got shipped out to another unit. And so I started writing them, and most of them wanted to continue the correspondence course. So what I was doing this by mail, which they knew who I was, I knew who they were, and we continued the program through the mail. That worked okay. A lot of times you don't have that personal contact with them, so it becomes kind of difficult to answer questions. But what I wanted to present to you, as for those that don't want to go into the prisons, this is a great opportunity for you to get involved in a correspondence course with these inmates. And if you want to do that, my suggestion is to work with the criminal justice minister that's assigned to the unit or to the parish that you go to find out how you can make contact with the chaplain and find out what it takes to bring this program into the unit by correspondence course. So I think that pretty much covers everything that how we run the program. And I think that's there'll be questions answered later after Claire talks. Thank you.
Moving right along. Let's keep it going. Next up is Clair McCormick. She's a parishioner of St. Pius X Catholic Church in San Antonio. She's a faith formation instructor for the Archdiocese of San Antonio, professional life coach. I didn't realize that. Way to go. Woo! And certified spiritual director. Claire has participated joyfully in jail and prison ministry with her husband, Robert, for the past 7 years. Actually, I thought it was longer. Claire serves as on the Kobe Prison Ministries San Antonio core team. She coordinates St. Pius X's prison ministry and is on the ministry of the Third Cross Board of Directors in San Antonio. Claire is going to share some information about faith-based life skills process called L3 Journeyman, developed with and by the inmates in the Connolly unit in Kennedy, Texas. Claire will be speaking to us also about teaching life skills to inmates. Again, get your questions together because when she's done, we're going to have 10 minutes of opportunities for questions. Claire, come on up. Was that quick enough for you?
Hello, everybody. I've been asked, here, let me get my bearings for a minute. I just want to reiterate, it's good to see people here, new faces, familiar faces. And I've been asked to share some of the ministry tools, including the life skills classes, with those of you that are here today. I often get asked, after RCIA, then what? Okay, so these are some of the things that we've been able to use successfully in the Connolly unit. And so I want to share them with you today. So if you'll look in your goodie bags, and then there's three items I'd like you to take out. One is a booklet that looks like this. It's called the Knucklehead Gospels. And then there's an overview. It starts Adoration Community. It should be a blue page, and that's about the life skills. And then the third piece of paper says L3 Journeyman, Life Skills, and Commitment at the top. And those are the three different things I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to start with this booklet called the Knucklehead Gospels, also known as the TKG. This is written by a Connolly resident and self-professed knucklehead, Arnulfo Ayala, who's been instrumental in helping us put together most of the projects we've done in the Connolly unit. I won't spend a lot of time describing Arnulfo today, but if you read the foreword, when you read the foreword in this book written by our very own Deacon Bob Legbrick, he describes Arnulfo better than anybody can. Arnulfo did ask me, though, to mention that he would love to hear from anyone willing to give him feedback and to keep him in prayer as he comes up for parole at the end of the year. He loves to get feedback because he's always working to develop his projects. And also he likes to get mail. So you can find him at the Connolly unit. Arnulfo de Ayala. This is a sample copy that you're receiving today. It's been donated by St. Pius X Prison Ministry in San Antonio. This is one of the several versions that we've done. We've condensed it so it can be used any time of the year. There was an Advent version that Arnulfo felt called to write, and then another one came out in time for Lent. This was especially important this year during the pandemic because we couldn't go in and see the guys, and they were all trapped in their individual pods, but we were able to produce some of these booklets, reflection booklets for Advent and Lent, and mail them into some of our peer ministers, some of the guys in the prison that were already kind of become leaders in the faith community. And they started to create daily reflections with the little small church communities within their pods. And it was a beautiful thing. So this turned out to be a very, very important tool. It's also, I think it's very well written. Arnulfo did a great job. Okay. I do want to tell you that we have this, we found ways to publish them if you're interested in them. We also had a bigger version like this, and it has like journal pages. They actually use it as a workbook. We can get those. They're a little more expensive, but get them printed up this way or this way. For those of you that go into a facility that doesn't allow staples at all, we found a way to get them bound without staples too. So if you have questions, you can ask me about that. But there's also information on the back of the booklet on ways to contact us if you need more information about these booklets. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is the life skills journeyman thing. L3 journeyman, the L3 stands for lifelong learning. This was just first introduced on the Conley unit in 2012 as a follow-up to the positive response of the Colby Acts retreats, created by volunteers Frank Cassidy and Robert McCormick, who are both here today. If you two will stand up for a minute so people can see. I'm sure they'd be glad to answer any questions that you guys have. It was also in a collaboration with a group of the Conley residents. The classes would meet weekly. Participants engage similar to what Jerry just described in the RCA program, but small group sharing was emphasized, written in class presentations, self-discovery, spiritual formation, and social re-entry preparedness. So the activities weave together faith formation and community building with critical thinking skills to promote a threshold of change to decisions and actions which led to their incarceration. There's 4 modules in the life skills program. And remember, this is in a maximum security prison, so these guys have the time. And so each module could take 3 to 6 months or more if they want to work on. The common curriculum thread was knowing, loving, and serving God through participation in Christ's priestly, prophetic, and kingly office. Homework was also assigned. We would assure the guys that only 1 specific or 2 specific volunteers would be the ones reading them, so confidentiality, so they could write whatever they wanted and knew that it would be, what happened in life skills stayed in life skills. But they were encouraged to, and also, and I just wanted to comment on that, for a lot of these guys, even now, as I correspond with guys who are taking some of the Catholic Distance University, they're excited to get a graded paper, because for some of them, to get a good grade on a paper, they were a lot more open to the homework than you imagine, because it was an amazing validation for them. So we did role playing in real life scenarios. There's, I'm just touching on highlights just so to give you guys an idea, because we only have a short period of time. But if you have more questions and want to know more about this program, we'll be glad to help you give that to you. So the goal of this life skills program is to move away from the gang culture and instill a faith-based lifestyle for betterment of self and community. I love that throughout the talks today, I keep hearing it, the word community, and the importance of helping the people who are incarcerated may have never had a community with the support and the positive role models. And that's one of the keys to, I think, some of the programs that we do. Preparation for reentry into society is also a goal, but also continued growth and positive contribution within the incarcerated, especially for places like the maximum security prison. A lot of those guys are not getting out for a long, long time. So we really encourage them to create their own little kingdom, their own faith community within and build the kingdom of God where they are at that time. So real quickly, modules 1 and 2, they use the names from the Acts retreats, but as themes, but that's kind of where the similarities stop. So adoration is learning about themselves. In the catechism, it says, Christian, know thyself. So we help them to find out more about themselves and learn about themselves and the relationship with God. And then the second module is learning about how to love neighbor. Personal relationships, responsibilities, conduct within a Christian community. They learn about social mores. They learn the meaning of community and cultural awareness. We help them practice communication skills with their group presentations and their oral presentations. They learn writing skills. They learn team building and working together. The next 2 modules grow progressively more difficult, and not as many of the guys continue in those. The theology module is kind of like a graduate level. And I know that Frank has been working on to revise that a little bit. So that one's still a work in progress. But it gives them a good foundation in the Catholic faith. The service module, which is the last module, develops skill sets for living this mission that they have come to this point. So the guys who continue and take this last module, they learn the psychology of human learning. They learn teaching 101. They learn classroom management. They learn how to write resumes, decision-making. They also do some parole planning, business planning, and they develop a community project. So learning how to reach out and serve others. One of the genius of this plan is that the men who do go on to take this last module learn all these teaching skills. So by the time that they are finished this, they are now able to facilitate all of the modules and teach as peer ministers to their fellow brothers. And at this point, most of the volunteers at Conley can sit back. Well, not now, we're going to start over again, but we're able to just sit and monitor and just be there to supervise, if you will. Because peer ministry, as most of us know, is way powerful. What their fellow brothers can get up and tell them what they know and what they've learned is much more powerful than you or I standing up there. So several years, and as I mentioned, this is a long-term facility. I know that a lot of you are here in facilities that does not work. And so that was a question that came up for us a lot. We don't have 2 years with one person that's incarcerated. So we were looking for solutions to that. But several years ago, data research was done on the L3 Journeyman course, Module 1, which is the adoration module, as part of a postgraduate degree by TDCJ volunteer Frank Cassidy at the Conley unit. I don't see Frank. Is he still here? Okay. Okay, you moved around, Frankie. All right. So the results of the 2-year study, and I can't give you all the data, but I'm sure Frank can, and I'm sure he'll be glad to answer questions and talk to anybody who's interested who likes the more specific data. But the 2-year study showed a dramatic decrease in violence and major cases within the treatment group of those who had taken the adoration courses and the control group. The question was then asked if this concept could be used to decrease recidivism in an at-risk county jail population. So again, Conley resident Arnulfo Aiello took up that task, and he combined a self-assessment workshop called Sienna with individual lessons from the first 2 modules of L3 Journeyman. And he named it the Crucible. I didn't know what the Crucible was, so I'm going to explain it to you and for those of you who may not know. There's a reference to it in the book of Malachi in the 3rd chapter, but it's a container in which you put a precious metal, a gold or silver, and you slowly and carefully heat it to a very, very high temperature, and it burns off all the impurities. And that's how you purify a precious metal, okay? Designed to help, this program was designed to help an individual discover who he is, determine where he wants to go in life, what his legacy will be. And for a lot of times, these guys have never been asked, what do you want to leave behind? What is going to be your legacy? We get them thinking about that, and then we study the personal and social skills necessary to accomplish that, with a goal to turn away from deviant behavior and focus on activities that will positively impact his life, family, and community. So these are some of the topics that we use for Crucible. There's actually 2 more that are in the big life skills program I was going to show you. This is a facilitator's guide for our life skills program. Okay. What we're doing right now with Crucible, as we look to start working towards bringing it in, we actually had plans to bring it into Kendall County Jail before the pandemic. All that's been postponed. But so there's 2 additional that are more Catholic-based. The Crucible does not have it in there. 2 of them are missing. But these are commitment, scripture learning, conversion, knowing God, and then a self-assessment class, prayer life, critical thinking, and fortitude. So let me talk to you about that last piece of paper. Oh, let me just tell you this. I went over real quickly. This is more a more in-depth overview of this life skills program. But now I'm going to talk to you about, well, it's a combination. In this, the last piece of paper that I put in there for you is what the student would get if they came to the first lesson. We instead of handing them out a workbook, because we don't know how many classes, in the jail or something that they might show up with. So we've individualized the lessons because they do stand alone. They build on each other when they're put together, but they also stand alone. So this is you have a sample of the copy of the first lesson. In the facilitator's guide, it has much more explanation about the learning, and it gives the facilitator the words and the things that they need. But this is what they would get. So we use Facing the Giants, which is a movie, and Frank has also very graciously been paying a fee to cover the permission for us to use it at the Conley unit. They love watching the movie, and after that, what we do is we have them look at the 9 different characters that are in this movie. Raise your hand if you've seen this movie, Facing the Giants. Okay, about half of you. It's a great tug at your heart, Hallmark card movie about a high school coach who's kind of lost all his hope in his battle against fear and failure, and he's had a losing season. They want to fire him, but then he's got some home things going on too, but he dares to trust God to do the impossible. And his little motley team has to play a team that's notorious and big winners called the Giants. But it's a metaphor for all of us have giants to face. So we talk about that. We have them each look at the different character studies to see who they relate to in the movie. And then they watch the movie, and then they answer these questions. Okay. Am I on my last one? I am. So I think I'm done. Does anyone have any? And I guess we'll be ready for questions, right?
Yes, ma'am. She does.
Get all my stuff off your desk here.
All right. Here comes the first question. As soon as they turn on the mic. We've been through this before.
Just stay right here.
There we go.
I'd also like to introduce, and Claire made reference to Frank Cassidy, who is also a contributor to this great life skills program. So Frank, I'll speak to you for just a sec.
So Claire, Larry, Jerry, if you want to come up here for the questions that they're going to be asking.
Good morning, Frank Cassidy. I've never been on a Kobe retreat, but I do know where several Holiday Inns are. Dad joke. Claire, thank you. Beautifully done. I personally want to thank you for your perseverance over the years through my wrapping up 2 careers. We started the life skills, as you said, late 2010, 11, started after RCIA. That retreat in August of 09, so blessed to see the faces. My comment is, life skill is a living organism. It was through collaboration with University of McCormick Word in San Antonio. The research was done, the data. We're still trying to get actual college credit. Through Clair's effort, San Antonio Archdiocese awards Catechist Level 1 for some of these, completing these modules. We've worked with the Benedictine College in Atchison, Kansas, near Fort Leavenworth. And through their correspondence, through the Third Order, the Benedictine, we've done a correspondence version. So the adoration module went over some significant updates. And in 2020, there was a 4th edition to include correspondence. Our challenges are, we've yet to replicate it at another unit. Part of the challenge there is the facilitated training, and what Mr. C, you're out there somewhere, coined back in 2010. The success of the courses was the white on white. We did not develop it. I'm an educator by trade, but it took those offenders, our brothers in white, to create realistic scenarios and learning activities to bring this curriculum alive and how to actually apply it. The big so what? What do you do with this? And I heard that this morning in the community. The licensure agreement, if we replicate it at each unit, we work with Provident Films in St. Paul, Minneapolis, to get, because we use Facing the Giants, Courageous, Fireproof, and Flywheel. Those 4 films are from Provident Films, so you need to do the licensure agreement. But other than that, thank you, Claire, thank you, Robert, and Jim West, who isn't here. He helped with the first lessons, as well as Arnulfo and Mike Keynes, who's behind me. I just want to make the comment that it's a living organism. If you're interested, Claire has her point of contact that can track me down because I'm a moving target. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Tong, do we have another question that you want to present, or?
Yes.
All right.
We have a virtual question, and I don't know, this could be for Jerry. It says, does the $500 video license need to be purchased within each diocese? I think you said it was $500 for the San Antonio diocese. So what about other dioceses?
Yeah, that was just an average price that I looked up at the time for all of the videos that were associated with the different modules. But that would be a price cost, a one-time cost for each diocese. And it would cover all the prisons in that diocese.
Can y'all hear me? I don't really use the bike. I used to teach inside Connolly. There's 2 others here I'd like to join me. Matt Zahner would come up here, and
Where's
Mr.
Matt?
C.
Where's Matt?
Castaneda, I know you're out here. Matt's right here somewhere. He's hiding.
There.
I want to tell y'all, when we first approached this life skills and the RCIA and the ACTS, if you don't know it, they work together, all 3 of them. That's what produced what Connolly has. It's why the first time we did confirmation, there was 4. You heard, I can't remember names today. Richard talk about, that was me that they jumped on. There's 120 that day, got confirmed a year and a half later. 120. The reason that is you take the ACTS, Kobe, you take the RCIA and you take the life skills and put them together. You're creating an environment for these people to learn. They don't know how to be men. You're teaching them how to be men and women that are successful and Christian. When we first approached Frank about the white on white, that we were going to hold our old brothers accountable, he was nervous. We flunked the guy, made him repeat the whole thing, and he actually came back and thanked us. RCIA, same way. We've seen guys, and Arnulfo could tell you if he was standing here, we've seen guys leave gangs in droves. You're going to have one that left later as a speaker. I'll give you a hint. They leave the gangs because they find something that they want, acceptance. a family. And that's what we were to them on the inside. You volunteers that come in, I got to thank the ones that are on stage that stayed with it. Claire was the backbone to it, made sure Robert went all the time, took care of all the paperwork we needed. Frank was trying to deal with other things he was trying to deal with. But y'all all sit here from a conversation that stemmed on another retreat in 2008 from two individuals, an offender and a volunteer. The volunteer is standing up there. The offender is still in here. It's Mr. Castaneda, and he asked, why can't we have this retreat? And they did it. In 2008, in 2009, we had the first one. And now you see this. I don't know how many people have been through it. And all the other programs came out of that same conversation. I stand here after 20 years of going in and out of the prison, being out for 6 years because of that conversation. And these volunteers that have been up here with a backbone. I thank you all that are here, that have been on any retreat, that administered to us while we were in there. Thank you all.
Michael, were you at the very first one? I was thinking about that earlier as I looked around the room. It was almost 12 years ago when a group of men from Fredericksburg, the parish in Fredericksburg, and a group of men from San Antonio decided to bring this retreat into the maximum security prison, not knowing what they'd expect. And a bunch of you are here. Could you all just stand up, those of you who were on that very first retreat? And the wives who were afraid for their husbands, but supportive anyway, and prayed a lot. So thank you. And it's very cool to see you guys again.
We have one more question, and then we'll get to a break. Sorry. Jerry and Larry, is there a particular information to introduce or give to the county jail authorities so that we can get this started? You do?
Okay, I think it sounds like that's referring to the Crucible, or, yeah, it sounds like it's referring to the Crucible. We have put together a stack of paperwork and have coordinated with the Kendall County Jail, because we were firing up to introduce that to the Kendall County Jail just before COVID hit. So we do have some preliminary stuff put together. If that person would want to contact me, our contact information, I think is that slide still up? There was a slide with our contact information. It'll be on the website also. Contact me and I'll get it to you.
We kind of have to wait till the facilities feel confident to start opening up enough to have those kind of classes. That's what we're all waiting for.
Yeah, I have a question about the RCIA program. We have a facility, or we had a facility where we had a lot of turnover. So we signed up 5 or 6 people to do RCIA. When it came time to graduate, we only had 1 left. And we don't know where the others went. So it's difficult for us to, for that person that went somewhere else, he may be halfway through with the program, but he has no way to prove it. So how do you deal with a situation like that?
Yeah, one of the ways we're trying to deal with it is we talked about this early on. It's an ideal, but obviously every group of people in the different dioceses have different RCI programs they're familiar with and they feel comfortable with, and that's what they take into the unit. And what's the best RCI program? The one you use. Right. So, but ideally, we'd like to have, it would be ideal if you had the same RCI program in each unit. So if that kind of stuff happened, they would be able to show that. Yeah. But yeah, I think it would be incumbent on us to at least have something. The problem is we never know when they're going to leave. That's the issue. They just all of a sudden disappear. Right. But ideally but if they write back to us, we can at least tell, if they write back to us, we can at least tell them what they have done up to that. We can do that much at least.
If you want to find out where if it was standardized, across the diocese, one program for all of us would be great.
If you have guys that left the unit and they're still in the system, you can go to offender search and punch in their TDCJ number. It'll pop up and tell you what unit they're at. And having said that, you can go ahead and write them. For those that use JPay, it's done automatically like email.
was always doing my Hermes. I said, hey, so-and-so is at your unit now. He needs to finish our CIA, get in contact.
Right.
Mention that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Deacon Bob, is if you want to, they want to continue the RCIA, and that's what I made reference to earlier. If they've left the unit that they were doing RCIA with you and they want to continue, you can use the mail to do that. It's easier to do it by mail. There's no personal contact. If they know you and you want to continue doing the course with them using the mail, it's like any other correspondence course that they have in a prison system that uses the mail system to do it. It's simple.
It's lunchtime, guys. We're going to cut it, but we'll be available if there are any other questions.
All right, so don't get up yet. Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Big round of applause for these three.